if you can, cut it out if you want to have a clearer mind. I thought this was interesting. A high fat intake, especially if it includes animal fats, whether from meat or dairy produce, makes the blood more thick and sticky and the whole circulation more sluggish. Just think of the blood trying to go through and it's thick and sticky. This makes oxygen transport to the brain less efficient and means a duller mind in the short term and serious trouble long term. So again, more information that shows about what a high fat intake will do to affect the brain. This was even more interesting. A hamburger and fries can be just as addictive as cigarettes and even drugs. Isn't that something? Scientists at the University of Wisconsin say high doses of fat in sugar and fast foods and processed foods act the same way as nicotine, heroin, and other substances becoming habit-forming. A high-fat diet alters brain biochemistry with effects similar to those in powerful opiates such as morphine. You know, we look at the morphine heroin addict and those addicted to all of these as, oh, these poor people. But we don't recognize when we're eating high-fat foods all the time, it has the same addictive effects. So when people say, I can't get off of these foods, some of them are literally being serious. And it's been found in this same book. He talks about a substance. The name of it is escaping me right now, but that substance is an addictive element in meat. So meat can be very difficult to get off, and we need to empathize and sympathize with people who are having a hard time getting off of meat if they need to do so for health reasons. Another thing that we need to keep in mind when we're trying to keep our minds clear, and that is how we eat. Studies show those who eat less have what? Better brain performance. I don't know if you remember the Sparta or Spartan, I don't remember the exact name, the Sparta warriors in Rome. If you look at how they were trained, many of them were put on lower calorie diets, and it was found that they functioned better. So there is some evidence to show that if we eat less, our brain is going to perform better. We don't want to become anorexic, but we want to eat less, and we can see that this man is probably not someone who eats less, and we need not to be that way. But in many cases of so-called mental failure, it is the overcrowding of the stomach that wearies the body and weakens the mind. There's a big connection, I want you all to understand, between what goes in here and how this functions. So we need to always keep that in mind. We need to keep that ever before us. That's why the Bible tells us, and put a what? A knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite. The wise man told us this because he knew the effect of what an appetite out of control can do. He says, you know, put a knife to your throat to stop yourself if you're a person given to appetite. Because not only will it affect some of you in terms of leading to some of the diseases, but it also can affect your mind and you won't function as well. Some other things about eating patterns in the mind. Regularity in eating is very important for the health of body and serenity of mind. Some of you may have heard of the circadian rhythm. Our body works based on a clock. It wants us to go to sleep at a certain time, eat at a certain time, wake up at a certain time regularly. And if we break up that clock, we will have problems with the mind. In another presentation, I gave an example of a patrol highway officer who was having problems sleeping. When she came in, I found out she had done 18 years of shift work. She wasn't being regular, and we got her on a regular schedule, and she was able to sleep. Her mind was more clear, more serene. So it makes a difference. Many eat at all hours, regardless of the laws of health, then gloom covers the mind. I can say that personally. I remember eating at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, going out with my friends to restaurants. I know my mind was not functioning the way it could have at that time. But now that I'm working on trying to follow more of the laws, which says we should be eating really the ideal time not to eat after is 6 o'clock. If you can do so, your mind will function better. Let's look at exercise in the brain. Older people, a study found, who exercise 3 or 4 times a week have a decreased risk of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Isn't that amazing? Exercising, how that can reduce dementia. And you know, if you look at some of the projections for the future, America's going to have a lot of people with Alzheimer's and dementia before it's over. Then with children, children who play vigorously for 20 to 40 minutes a day are better able to organize their schoolwork, do math, and do class projects. And if you know anything about children who are diagnosed with ADHD, they have problems in many of these areas. They can't organize their schoolwork. Math is a problem, and they have problems with class projects. But it found that if you let your child go out and play vigorously for 20 to 40 minutes a day, they're going to be able to do this better. When I work with parents who have children diagnosed with ADHD, I tell them, get them outside. And you know, it's something for me to think about having to tell parents to get their children outside. When I remember growing up, we lived outside. But now with the computer, the Nintendo, the TV, kids are not getting outside as much. So we need to actually encourage our children to get outside because it has a powerful effect on the brain. Not only will the organs of the body be strengthened by exercise, but the mind will acquire strength and knowledge through the action of these organs. Again, we're looking at exercise. And this was written over 100 years ago by my favorite health educator. Her name is Ellen G. White. And she says that exercise will strengthen the mind, will strengthen the brain, not only the body. This is something interesting about exercise, too. When you exercise, it helps you grow new brain cells. Did you know that? There was a time when science was telling us once you lose those brain cells, that's it. But now science is finding that you can grow new brain cells. Also, if you're in an enriched environment, meaning that you're in an environment where you're doing things to exercise your mind, just not watching TV all the time, but things that will enrich you, that will help grow new brain cells. And then this was only found with rats. We're not sure this is true with humans, but when the rats reduced their calories, they found that they grew new brain cells as well. So if you want to grow new brain cells, exercise more and do things that will stimulate your mind and your brain. Air and the mind. We need to get fresh air. If you look at these pictures, you'll see that there's water, a waterfall, there's trees. Nature, when we're around nature, it has a lot of negative ions. We want more negative ions, and the negative ions have been found physiologically to have an impact on the brain. So we want to get some fresh air. If you're living in the city, you're surrounded by concrete, see if you could get out to nature sometimes to help your mind to be more clear and to function more in an effective way. Many persons confine themselves in ill-ventilated rooms where the air is not charged with its appropriate share of oxygen. Many breathe air that is poisoned, and the blood is not purified in the lungs and passes into the body without being vitalized by a fresh current of air. The result is that persons are troubled with what? Giddiness, restlessness, confused thoughts, and gloomy spirits. The brain is clouded and the heart depressed. So we have to get fresh air. If you have a home, open up your windows just a little, even in the winter. We started doing that. You will sleep better. You'll feel better. You'll be amazed at what fresh air will do. Get more fresh air. My husband used to work in an office before we started this organization, Be in Good Health. And he told me that after he started learning this, he would go outside every, I don't know how often, but several times throughout the day and just breathe in fresh air. He was in a stressful environment, and he shared with me that this helped him tremendously. So fresh air is something that's free. You can get it free. You don't have to pay for it. Try to get more of it, and you'll find you'll have a clearer mind. Water also has an impact on the mind. Did you know that 85% of your brain tissue is water? And if 85% of it is water, it's going to need water to function. I remember hearing this analogy a long time ago that when we don't drink water, our body is just recycling, and it's like our body is using toilet water. That thought right there just made me recognize I wanted to get fresh water in there, and I started drinking more water. Some of you may be asking, well, how much water do I drink? I shared this before. I heard it from a doctor, and she said as long as your urine is pale, then you know you're drinking enough water. And that can range anywhere from 6 to 10 glasses a day. So we want to get more water. Sunlight is also good for the mind. Sunlight helps to regulate that circadian rhythm that I talked about earlier, the body clock, so that things are functioning the way they should. Vitamin D also comes from the sun. It turns the cholesterol into vitamin D right under your skin. And that vitamin D is so important for the mind. They're finding out more and more how vitamin D helps with mental disorders and can cause, when it's deficient, can cause mental disorders. So we want to get more sunlight. Sunlight is also good for serotonin. And serotonin just gives us a nice mood. In fact, serotonin is what is addressed with drugs such as Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, Zoloft. And if we could get that naturally, why not try to do so? All of these things are good for the mind. It's amazing, these natural things that we have that can help our minds to function better. And it's just wonderful to know what God